There really is no better feeling in golf than a well-struck iron shot. You know, the one that hits the center of the club face, you hit the ball first and the ground second, and a seemingly effortless swing produces a very powerful penetrating ball flight that heads straight towards your target. If you'd like to learn how to create the ultimate impact alignments more often, then you're going to want to stick around and watch today's video. I'm going to share with you a wonderful analogy that was shared with me by one of my students in a recent lesson that I think sums up the impact interval perfectly. So what do these ultimate impact alignments look like? Well, you may be familiar with some of them. I'm just going to recap one or two so that we know what we're looking for. The first one would be some shaft lean at impact. And what does that mean? Well, that means the shaft should be slightly towards the target at the point of impact. And that helps for a few reasons. It helps to hit high enough up on the club face. Most poor golfers who struggle with contact live towards the bottom of this club face, hitting low on the face, maybe groove 1 or 2. The best players are hitting higher up the club face, groove number 5 or 6, and the only way you can get the ball to contact the face high enough up the club face is to deliver the club with some shaft lean at impact. So we know we want to have some shaft lean. The other benefit of shaft lean is if I attach this rod to the club face, you'll notice from this front view how the amount of shaft lean I deliver to the ball at impact has a direct influence on how much loft I deliver at impact. And the amount of loft I deliver at impact is going to affect the ball speed and ultimately how far I hit the club. So ultimate impact alignments also involve having some shaft lean, which helps to reduce dynamic loft and will help you to hit the ball further. And an important feeling that you need to associate with shaft lean is the ability to put some pressure or stress on the back of the golf club shaft here, or the back of the grip, using my trail hand, and more specifically the knuckle of my index finger pushing against the back of the shaft. That's where my student shared the analogy of striking the match. When you strike a match against the side of a matchbox, you need to lean the match slightly to create that pressure so that we can strike the match and create the flame. If the match is straight up and down or even leaning backwards, you don't get that downward pressure that you need to ignite the match. It's similar with a golf shot. You need that downward pressure as you're pushing through impact to keep the club head moving down and get that perfectly compressed iron shot. Equally, if you have the shaft straight up and down or even leaning backwards, you're going to have a huge issue creating any sort of powerful contact, and that's where so many amateur golfers live. They never create the necessary alignments at impact because you don't fully understand what that should feel like. The analogy of striking the match really resonated with me when my student shared it with me, and I wanted to share this with you. Now I'm going to share with you some drills that you can do which will turn that analogy into a real feel, and ways that you can practice this to master the ultimate impact alignments. So let me walk you through some different options here and different ways to get the feel that you can then transfer into the shot. First one's going to be to start with an alignment stick. Hopefully most of you have one of these in your bag, and you can really get a good sense of stressing or lagging the shaft using a bendy, lightweight alignment stick to begin with. The way that I would do this exercise would just be to set it up on the ground and place the alignment stick or angle the alignment stick in a way that it's behind me with this large amount of shaft lean. The additional length of an alignment stick allows you to do this. And then what I would ask you to do is to drag the stick along the ground towards the target for as long as you can. Get that club, or that stick I should say, to stay in the ground for as long as possible into the follow through. That starts to teach you the sensation of some good wrist bends, so there's some benefit here to training your wrists. And at the same time, you're going to get the sensation how this trail index finger, the index finger on my right hand and this knuckle joint, is pushing against the side of this stick constantly to keep the stick in contact with the ground for as long as possible. That's like striking the match. That's the movement that my student shared with me that I really like, the idea of dragging this stick along the ground and keeping the pressure on the back of the shaft. If you've never experienced the correct impact alignments, this feeling for you could be extremely alien. So I wouldn't suggest you start doing this with the golf club and trying to hit the ball immediately. Start with the alignment stick, begin dragging the stick along the ground for as long as you can, and start to train the correct wrist angles, the correct body motion, and the correct pressure that you need to lean on the back of the shaft in order to start to train a better impact. And then if we want to develop that skill further and introduce the golf club and how that would interact with the ground, I'd tell you to grab an iron. I've got a 7 iron here. You could do this with any iron in your bag, and try to create the same sort of sensation where you have some shaft lean, you're dragging the club head along the ground for as long as possible and trying to keep that pressure against the back side of the shaft. Again, you're striking the match along the ground. The feeling I would give you here is to try to keep the club head as low to the ground for as long as possible at and after impact. We don't want this club head getting away from the ground. That's typical, again, of poor ball strikers who would top or thin a lot of shots because their wrists are bending incorrectly and their elbows are flexing. That's going to pull the club away from the ground. The opposite of that would be keeping the club head as low to the ground for as long as possible. Again, training these desirable wrist angles and these feelings through impact. If you have a divot board training aid, which I know many of you will have, you can also utilize the divot board for this exercise. I like it because it gives you a visual representation of how this club's moving along the ground. I'm setting the divot board up slightly differently here. I'm actually putting the back of the divot board where my club would be, where my impact would be. And I'm trying to use the entire length of the divot board to change the sequence here and change the color. Once again, that's helping me to get the sensation of keeping the club head low to the ground through the ball. And in order to do that, I need some shaft lean and I need to put pressure on the back side of this shaft. It's a nice way for you to think about this hitting through the ball. Striking the match, again, just striking your club head along the divot board is the analogy of you striking the match along the side of the box. So now that we have that sensation of what the post-impact feel should be like, club head low to the ground, shaft leaning, and some stress or some pressure on the back side of the shaft, we can begin to introduce the ball and put this into practice. So now we've progressed to the point where you have a good sensation of how the hands and the wrist should feel through impact. We can introduce the ball, and I'll share with you the exact drill I gave to my student who came up with the strike the match analogy. It was from this drill that I'm about to share with you that he came up with that feeling of striking the match. Some of you will have seen a version of this drill from me before, which I call hit hard, stop quick, which requires the golfer to swing back, swing down to the ball quite hard, make contact and stop quickly into the follow through. This strike the match drill is a slight addition to that. It's a slight variation on hit hard, stop quick, because this person really required more of a downward angle of attack to really get the sensation of compressing the ball, something so many of you struggle with. And so what I asked him to do wasn't just to stop quickly, but was also to just feel like he pulled the club head back, almost like a recoil after impact. And that sensation of stopping the swing extremely quickly after impact and pulling the club head back gave him that sensation of the drag or the striking of the match that we've talked about already today. So this is what this drill would look like. You'd start out with a length of swing, length of backswing that you're comfortable with. Some people will go slower or smaller to start with, which I don't mind, but you really want to be hitting with some intent. So we want the impact interval here to be meaningful and intentful. You want to be trying to hit the ball reasonably hard, but at the same time you want to be stopping quickly. And at the end of the swing, you're trying to recreate those alignments that we've spoken about throughout the video. One would be that the shaft is still trailing the lead arm, and that's the shaft lean. And two would be that you really feel like you're pushing some stress through the back of the shaft with the trail hand, and again, specifically this knuckle of your index finger on your right hand. You'd hit hard, you'd stop in that position as quickly as possible, and then there might be a little bit of recoil as that energy gets dispersed. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to show you the first example of that, and this is what you'll be working towards. So there's the stop quick, a little bit of a recoil, and there's that ball flight, tiny little push draw. things to note about this drill and what it's designed to do. It's designed to help a golfer hit down more than they would do. So this is perfect if you struggle to get divots after the ball or divots at all. If you notice your angle of attack with your fairway clubs is too level to the ground, then this exercise would be a really good one for you to do. The other thing is it moves the low point of the swing, the bottom of the swing arc, further forwards. And you know from previous videos, if you've watched anything that I've made, you'll know that low point control really is the first fundamental skill you need to learn in order to play good golf. So in that example there, the angle of attack for this 7-iron was 7.4 degrees down, which is excessive, but this drill is designed to help you do these things to an exaggeration. It's supposed to push you to past the point of where you'd want to be for a real shot. So that was 7 degrees down. And the low point of the swing was 6 inches after the ball. So that means the low point was actually positioned past the ball, which is exactly where it should be. Now, if you're a poor ball striker or you struggle with any sort of consistent ball striking, the likelihood is that the low point of your swing is too far back. So the striking the match analogy, dragging the club head and stopping soon after impact, where you feel like this club head is as low to the ground as possible. Look what's necessary for me to do that. My arms need to be straight. If I was bending my arms, I'd pull the club away from the ground. And my wrist is bent backwards still. My trail wrist is bent backwards with this shaft lean, keeping that club head as low to the ground for as long as possible after impact. If you don't have good contact in your current swing, if you don't make solid contact, if you struggle to compress your iron shots, then this is the exact drill that you should start with. There's no other drill that will help you more than this one if you want to improve your ball striking. And the wonderful thing about this drill is it can be built upon gradually as your skill develops, meaning you can start out with hit hard, stop quick with a relatively small swing and build up to fuller, faster swings as you progress and as you become more proficient. So that first shot I hit there only went 100 yards. It was a pretty short shot. I was trying to just demonstrate to you the idea of swinging back, stopping immediately after impact and retaining these impact alignments. I cannot overstate the importance of learning those feels through impact. But once you feel like you're getting somewhere with that and you're punching these balls out there a relatively consistent distance with a relatively consistent contact, then you're going to want to progress to hitting the balls further. And the trick to that is not swinging further on the follow through, but swinging faster. Still stopping or trying to stop in the same place while delivering more energy and more force into the ball. I do not want you to think that you need to have this long follow through. In fact, one of the other ideas or feels that my student shared with me was that his biggest learning from this entire exercise was that the golf swing, and in particular the follow through, was much shorter than he ever imagined it should be. We've increased his ball striking ability and increased the distance he hits the ball with what is now a much shorter follow through than he ever had. Many of you would benefit from understanding that a long follow through isn't just unnecessary, it's actually hurting your game. So if you really want to develop this skill, understand that the follow through still needs to be short even when you swing fast. And so as I say, the progression of this drill is not to swing longer. Lots of people will say to me, Rob, I love this drill, it's really helping my ball striking. When can I make a full swing? I often smile and say, well, you're kind of making a full swing already. We just need to put more energy into that shorter swing. So the progression through the drill of the strike and match and the hit hard, stop quick is just to start swinging faster and learning to still put the stop point in place that we've already described. So, more energy into the shot with the intention of still stopping in the same place. That's a much higher ball flight with a beautiful little draw on it. That carried 150 yards. That's not far off a full 7-iron. So I managed to achieve a 5-degree angle of attack down. So I'm still hitting down correctly, getting that nice compression, delivering that shaft lean that I was looking for. And my low point there was 4 inches after the ball. Perfect, really. Perfect delivery of the club using a drill where I have an extremely short follow through. So if you want to develop this skill, and I'm sure many of you do, learn to start out small and get the alignments in place. The shaft lean and the stopping quick with the weight forward, all the pieces that you know you need. Build up that skill slowly to begin with, or with small swings, and then gradually add more energy to the stroke while still trying to retain the same follow through. Do not think of the progression of this drill being from going from the drill itself, which is fantastic and helps you strike the ball better, to completely abandoning the drill on the golf course and thinking, right, now I need to make a full swing. That's where you're getting this wrong. The progression, as I've said, is from slower to placing more energy into the swing, but still stopping in the same place. And you can play golf with this swing. You can take this swing to the golf course and have this short finish become part of your actual swing. A little more energy into the stroke again, trying to stop in the same place. Pretty similar ball flight, pretty similar numbers. The intention of striking the match and dragging that club head, just as you would drag the matchstick head along the side of the box, can help you to generate the desirable arm structure and wrist angles that you need to deliver this club into that ultimate impact position. I really hope you can take something practical from this video, which will help you next time you're at the range and begin to build the pieces of your swing you need to really become a better ball striker. So there are some very practical drills you can take with you next time you go to practice. Ultimately, golf is about discovering the feel that you need to create the reel that you want. And the analogy of striking the match was the one that did it for my student. Hopefully that thought and that analogy resonated with you as much as it did with him. And if you enjoyed the video today, I would love you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And if you'd like to explore the hit hard, stop quick drill even further and all of the benefits that come from it, then I'd encourage you to click this video next. This one will explain to you why the hit hard, stop quick drill is the ultimate ball striking drill for golfers of every single level.